My name is Alex Turner, and I have always been passionate about running my own small business. Growing up in Seattle, I learned the importance of hard work from my parents, who ran a local bakery. They taught me that success doesn't come easy, and I carried their lessons into my own journey. But running my business hasn't been all sunshine. Lately, I have felt overwhelmed. Despite my efforts, my shop is struggling to make ends meet. Worries about the bills stack up, making it hard to sleep at night. Everyday challenges seem to weigh heavily on my shoulders. I spend countless hours thinking about sales and customer satisfaction, but I often feel lost in a way. I stick to my usual routines, but deep down, I sense that I need to find a new approach. My shop is filled with beautiful handmade crafts, but customers walk by without a second glance. This makes me question if I'm cut out for business. I often feel anxious when I see competitors thriving nearby, their bright storefronts buzzing with customers. My current mindset keeps me stuck, and I know I need to change. As I sit at my wooden desk by the window, watching the rainy streets of Seattle, I can hardly shake the feeling that I am missing something. I want to connect with my customers better and bring life back into my shop. This mix of hope and fear fills my heart as I prepare to seek a fresh perspective and learn the strategic thinking I need to save my business. The days passed, and I knew I needed to change my approach before it was too late. I decided to focus my energy on making my shop more inviting and appealing to customers. I thought a new display might attract more attention, but I quickly found myself overwhelmed. The task felt bigger than I imagined, and I kept getting distracted by other things. One afternoon, while rearranging some products, my phone buzzed with notifications from social media. As I scrolled through my feed, I saw beautiful posts from other shops showcasing their latest items. I couldn't help but compare myself to them. It felt like they were light years ahead of me, and that feeling made me want to give up. Why was I struggling while they thrived? I felt that familiar knot of self-doubt in my stomach. Every item I touched felt heavier, each decision more complicated than the last. People walked by the shop, browsing, but they never stepped inside. I tried to engage with customers, but my voice trembled every time. My old habits were pulling me back. Instead of taking action, I found myself stuck in a loop of overthinking and second-guessing myself. One evening, sinking into my desk chair with despair, I opened my laptop, seeking inspiration. I wanted to find strategies from successful business owners, something that could spark a light in me, but mostly I felt confused. Just then, an email popped up. It was a newsletter from a local business support group I had signed up for months ago. One article caught my attention, embracing strategic thinking. As I read about focusing on clear goals and taking small steps, a shift began to occur within me. This wasn't some grand promise of immediate success, but rather a gentle push towards a fresh way of thinking. A few days later, feeling hopeful but still uncertain, I decided to reach out for help. I emailed my old college professor, Mrs. Ramirez, who had often encouraged me during my studies. I explained my struggles and asked if she could meet for coffee. To my surprise, she responded enthusiastically and agreed to meet me the next week. I felt nervous and excited, racing with thoughts of how she might help me see a clearer path. When the day finally arrived, I felt a swirl of emotions. Meeting Mrs. Ramirez at a cozy cafe made me feel at ease. She listened as I poured out my frustrations about my shop and my wavering confidence. "You know, Alex," she said gently, "we often hold ourselves back due to fear. But learning how to think strategically is like learning a new skill. It takes time and practice." Her words ignited something in me. I began to realize that I was capable of growth if I allowed myself the space to learn. She suggested simple exercises to improve focus, such as setting daily goals and carving out uninterrupted time for myself. Her encouragement sparked a tiny flame of determination within me. I was reminded that every successful journey has its struggles. I understood that I didn't have to be perfect immediately, the chance to change existed right in front of me. I felt a new energy and motivation to press forward and embrace the challenge ahead. With Mrs. Ramirez's guidance still fresh in my mind, I knew it was time to put my newfound knowledge into practice. I decided to start small and focus on daily goals that felt achievable. One morning, I opened the shop early, determined to create a welcoming display that would draw customers in. I set my timer for 1 hour, prepared to empty my mind and work without distractions. As I rearranged products and cleaned the window displays, I challenged myself to stay focused. At first, it was difficult. My mind wanted to wander, thinking about past mistakes or wondering about my slow sales. However, I reminded myself of Mrs. Ramirez's advice. I took a deep breath and pushed those distracting thoughts aside. Slowly, I began to feel a sense of clarity as my efforts transformed the shop's atmosphere from dull to vibrant. A faint smile crossed my face as I finished the display. I stepped back and admired my work. Bright colors greeted pedestrians outside, inviting them to look inside. Although I faced some lingering self-doubt, that small victory filled me with a positive energy I had not felt in weeks. However, the moment I thought I was making progress, the challenges escalated. Later that week, I sat down to write a newsletter to my customers, hoping to keep them engaged. I wanted to share insights about my products and upcoming promotions. My goal was to send it out by Friday. But as I began typing, anxiety washed over me. I hesitated, fearing that no one would read it. What if my words did not resonate with them? What if I made mistakes? The timer I set for writing was ticking down, but my fingers stopped moving. I glanced at the screen full of half-formed ideas. My heart raced as frustration began to bubble within me. Why was it so hard to communicate clearly? Perhaps I was not cut out for this kind of work. Just as my thoughts spiraled, I remembered what Mrs. Ramirez had said about not being perfect from the start. Taking a deep breath, I focused on Mrs. Ramirez's exercises. I decided to relax my mind and allow myself to write freely, letting the ideas flow without judgment. With newfound resolve, I wrote a heartfelt message, emphasizing how grateful I was for my loyal customers. I highlighted a few favorite products and offered a small discount for anyone who visited that weekend. When I finally hit send, a wave of relief washed over me. I had faced my fear, and even though it felt risky to share my words, I knew I wouldn't grow unless I took chances. As the weekend came closer, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Would anyone take advantage of the discount? Would they engage with the newsletter? Deep down, I was still unsure if my efforts would pay off. At that moment, I realized something important about progress. Even with small wins, the journey to growth would not always be easy. While I was proud of what I accomplished, I understood that each step forward would bring new challenges. Embracing these hurdles was just a part of the process. I knew that if I continued pushing through the doubts, I was gradually becoming the business owner I wanted to be. I was learning that growth meant overcoming obstacles, but every little win was a step worth celebrating. Just as I began to settle into my new routines and gain momentum, an unexpected challenge fell into my lap. It was a sunny Thursday morning when I received an email that turned my stomach. A well-known magazine in Seattle wanted to feature local businesses in their upcoming issue, and they planned to visit my shop for a potential write-up. The idea excited me, but alongside that excitement came a wave of panic. My heart raced as I imagined the visit. Suddenly, my mind flooded with all the what-ifs. What if my shop wasn't ready? What if the employees didn't show up on that day? Worst of all, what if the journalist found my business uninteresting and told the world? The positive momentum I had started to build wilted under the weight of my fears. As days passed, I found it harder to keep my composure. Each time I visited my shop or worked on small tasks, the looming pressure of the article consumed me. I spent countless hours overthinking everything, from the way products were displayed to how I would answer questions. My old self, the one filled with self-doubt and hesitation, was creeping back in. It felt like a dark cloud had overshadowed the hope I had started to cultivate. I tried to maintain my confidence, but I couldn't shake the doubts from my mind. I began to wonder if my shop was ever enough. As I stared at the blank screen during a late-night planning session, I struggled to write a professional introduction about my business. My world of colorful crafts and dedicated service seemed trivial beside other shops that bustling downtown had that booming presence. The more I thought about it, the more I considered canceling the appointment entirely. Maybe I could call the magazine and tell them I wasn't ready for such a big opportunity. But deep down, I knew I would regret hiding from this chance. Yet, the fear paralyzed me, filling my heart with anxiety. I spent sleepless nights worrying about every detail, replaying various scenarios in my head. When the day of the interview finally arrived, I was in shambles. My nerves were raw, and my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. I rushed to the shop early that morning, trying desperately to create the perfect environment, but nothing felt right. Every corner I turned, I found something wrong. The signs were crooked, and half the craft sets felt dusty. The more I cleaned, the more chaotic I felt inside. Just minutes before the journalist was set to arrive, I stood in front of the mirror practicing my introduction. But instead of feeling stronger, I pressed my hands against my trembling chest, realizing that the battle was with my own fears. My thoughts tugged at me, no one would believe I was capable of impressing someone important. The moment of truth arrived, and the bell above the door chimed as the journalist walked in. My stomach dropped. I had hoped my efforts would pay off, but I felt far from prepared. The flood of insecurity overwhelmed me as I forced a smile and offered a shaky welcome. All the lessons I had learned seemed to fade away, trapped underneath the layers of doubt I let in. Would I slip back into the old version of myself? All that I had worked for felt like it was hanging by a thread. As I stood there, forcing a smile despite the storm of emotions within me, the journalist seemed both ready and relaxed. I wanted to be at ease, but instead, my mind felt foggy. The first question felt like a tidal wave crashing down. "What inspires you to run this shop?" she asked, and I couldn't form a sentence. In that moment, doubts clenched at my heart, and I stumbled over my words. Desperation coursed through me as if the very air was refusing to fill my lungs. I felt like a ship lost at sea, furiously battling waves while all I truly wanted was calm. With each passing second, I wondered why I had persisted through all this. This wasn't just another interview, it felt like the final reveal of my hard work. And right at that moment, I wanted to flee. I really don't know," I mumbled, the words falling heavy from my lips. The journalist's gaze turned curious, almost concerned, but the embarrassment burned deep within me. I thought about giving up, about letting my dream fade away. Maybe the journey was foolish. Perhaps my shop would never become anything more than a footnote. But just as I prepared to tuck my head in shame, something inside me began to shift. A memory floated into my mind, one of a sunny afternoon at my parents' bakery. I had been a child, helping my mother sprinkle powdered sugar over fresh pastries, and the laughter surrounding us filled the room. Her bright smile as she welcomed each customer made every long hour worth it. I remembered how she taught me that every exhibit of hard work has its moments of trial, but believing in the warmth of community was everything. That simple realization struck like lightning. I understood suddenly that this was not just about selling crafts. I wasn't trying to compete, I was here to share joy, just like my parents had. For the first time, the fog surrounding my thoughts started to clear, and a sense of purpose returned to my chest. Maybe the journalist would see the passion that sparked my journey instead of merely critiquing my work. With this new energy awakening inside me, I took a deep breath and began to speak. I reflected on why I opened my shop in the first place. I wanted a space where others could feel the same warmth I had felt at my parents' bakery. It was about bringing beauty into everyday life and creating community. As I spoke, my voice steadied, and the journalist listened intently. The connection I felt rekindling pushed me to express how crafting had been my outlet during tough times. I spoke about the people who visited my shop and the joy of seeing them connect with my creations. The more I shared, the more alive I felt. Instead of just answering questions, I was telling my story. By the end of the interview, I realized although I had faced challenges and moments of doubt, every step along this journey was leading me somewhere meaningful. I had almost abandoned that journey, but now it felt revitalized. I learned that growth involves overcoming fears and allowing myself to embrace vulnerability. In that breakthrough, I felt stronger than before. I had faced my limits and found deeper reasons to pursue my dreams. That resurgence of clarity reminded me that every journey has its ups and downs, and I was now more prepared than ever to navigate whatever challenges lay ahead. With the encouraging voice of my past echoing within me, I knew I had to push forward. The journalist waited with her notepad, and I could feel the doubt starting to retreat, replaced by a sense of purpose that I hadn't felt in a long time. Instead of being merely a shop owner, I was a storyteller, sharing the love and joy behind my craft. Let me tell you what makes my shop special, I began, recalling the energy I felt at my parents' bakery. I focused my thoughts and explained how each handmade item wasn't just a product but a piece of my heart. I wanted the journalist to see the promise of community that I aimed to build. My confidence was still shaky, but it fueled my determination. However, delivering my message hadn't magically erased all the tightness in my stomach. I felt pressure building. Was it enough? Each time the journalist scribbled notes, a swirl of anxiety tugged at the corners of my mind. I fought the urge to worry. Instead, I took a deep breath and focused on what mattered, my passion for crafting and sharing art with the world. During our conversation, she asked challenging questions, probing deeper into my strategies for attracting customers. In the past, I might have slipped back into uncertainty, but now I remembered my commitment to the journey I had chosen. I had started experimenting with new marketing ideas, reaching out more to potential customers through social media, and even hosting crafting workshops in my shop. As I shared this, my mind raced ahead to think strategically, preparing for possible follow-up questions. I realized that each piece I shared helped shed light on my growth journey, not only for myself but for others who might be struggling too. Sure, there were still many unknowns, but I wasn't alone. Though the questioning intensified, I remained on track. If anything, every inquiry propelled me to find clarity amid my thoughts. I welcomed the pressure, adapting my responses on the spot while attributing my strategies to everything I had learned through Mrs. Ramirez and my experiences in those earlier challenging moments. Yet, just as I felt a surge of resilience, the journalist asked a question that hit hard: what do you think sets you apart from competitors? The words echoed in the room, a wave of anxiety washing over me once more. It felt like my doubts wrapped around my throat like a tight vine. Why was it so hard to articulate my passion? In that moment, I paused and tuned into the spirit of my work. After gathering my thoughts, I looked right at her and said, I focus on connecting people, not just selling products. My shop is not just a business, it's a place for community, creativity, and expression. I want people to feel that when they craft alongside me or take home something handmade. With this honesty in my response, I could see understanding in her eyes. The journalist's interest deepened, and for the first time, I felt free from the expectations of perfection. I had embraced my vision. It became less about sales or competition and more about the shared experiences behind crafting. She nodded thoughtfully, encouraging me to go on. As I described my future plans for the shop, workshops, heartwarming gatherings, and engaging social media events, I saw the spark return. The pressure remained, but now it ignited my desire to keep pushing. This was my turning point where fear transformed into determination, and the experience turned into meaningful progress. The corner of my lips curled into a genuine smile, filled with excitement for what lay ahead. By the end of our conversation, I knew I had taken an important step forward, not only in my business but in my journey toward becoming the person I always wanted to be. As the journalist left my shop, I felt a whirlwind of emotions swirling within me: relief, excitement, and a newfound strength. The door closed behind her with a gentle chime, and for a brief moment, everything fell silent. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, feeling both exhausted and revitalized. I realized that I had just shared my story, confronted my fears, and showcased the heart of my business. After she departed, I stood at my counter, reflecting on what had just happened. Did I have the perfect answers? Maybe not. Did I explain everything flawlessly? Certainly not. But I had spoken my truth, and that felt empowering. This experience had pulled something deep within me to the surface, reminding me why I started this journey in the first place. Returning to my workspace, I gazed at the colorful crafts around me. Each item symbolized not only the creativity I poured into my work but also my commitment to growth. I walked around my shop as though seeing everything for the first time. The handmade signs I had crafted held stories of my perseverance, and the laughter added during crafting workshops hummed in the air. I felt incredibly proud of the journey I had traveled, even amidst the uncertainties. Sure, the fear of judgment still lingered, but now it seemed less daunting than before. I recalled Mrs. Ramirez's words, her gentle encouragement to push beyond my comfort zone. Instead of retreating to self-doubt, I embraced what I had gained through this experience, a deeper understanding of my purpose. It was no longer just about making sales, it was about creating connections and offering joy to others. I had waded through the storms of anxiety but found my footing in the process. Over the next few days, I faced the aftermath of the interview with a blend of anticipation and curiosity. I secretly wondered how the article would turn out, but I also realized the impact of my growth exceeded the potential publicity. I began laying the foundation for my next workshop, excited to create an event that brought together people who shared my passion for crafting. Excitement bubbled within me. I reached out to local art communities and began revitalizing my social media presence, eager to share not just my crafts but also the stories behind them. These efforts sprang from my heart, ensuring I authentically connected with anyone who wandered into my shop or scrolled through my feed. As I adjusted my perspective, I saw that each challenge I had faced was a stepping stone to understanding resilience and patience. My journey was weaving a more fascinating tapestry than I could have ever imagined. I reminded myself of the many moments of doubt I conquered. I had learned to celebrate progress no matter how small, and to cherish each step along the way. Whether the article would lead to an avalanche of new customers or quiet storytelling moments, I felt an unwavering belief in my path. I had built my shop to serve a purpose, joy, creativity, and community. Each day was a part of that growth. The future lay open before me, full of possibilities, and whatever came next, I was ready to embrace it with open arms. I understood now that success wasn't just about being noticed or praised, it was about finding meaning and connection. As days turned into weeks, the themes of growth and resilience became part of my daily routine. I found myself waking up each morning with a sense of purpose and renewed energy. The doubts and fears that once clouded my mind began to fade away like mist in the sunlight. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the day's tasks, I approached them with a bulletproof mindset. I started each day by setting clear intentions for what I wanted to achieve, using small rituals to focus my energy. Whether it was spending a few quiet moments with a cup of coffee or jotting down my goals for the day, I grounded myself in positivity and clarity. My earlier struggles to concentrate felt like a distant memory. I discovered that these tiny practices were transformative, igniting a familiarity with joy in my work. This change did not go unnoticed by those around me. Customers at my shop began to share their compliments, saying they sensed a bright energy in the atmosphere. "It feels different in here," one regular customer remarked with a smile. I could feel the warmth radiating around me each time someone walked in, and it motivated me to keep nurturing that environment. I also made time to engage with customers as they browsed, really connecting with them instead of rushing through interactions. Each conversation solidified my belief that every person who entered my shop was here for a purpose, just as I was. Handling stressful situations became more manageable. When suppliers were late with shipments or when a workshop had fewer participants than I had hoped, my reactions shifted. Instead of feeling anxious, I saw these challenges as opportunities to find creative solutions. I took a moment to breathe and assess the situation thoughtfully rather than simply reacting. I began reaching out to my network for support, asking friends for help or adjusting my plans with ease. One afternoon, I planned a workshop, and a last-minute cancellation by a guest threatened to put a damper on the day. Rather than lazing in disappointment, I seized the moment and decided to turn it into a brainstorming session. I invited those already present to share their ideas for the next crafting project, nourishing creativity and collaboration. Together, we created a lively atmosphere filled with excitement, making it a memorable day. Every challenge now felt like a puzzle I could solve rather than a mountain I could not climb. My new mindset empowered me to take control of my responses. I had learned to trust myself, and in doing so, I inspired those around me. Friends began to notice how much my outlook had shifted since that monumental interview. The self-assuredness that blossomed within me even caused some to ask for advice on dealing with their own obstacles. "Alex, you seem different lately," my friend Mia said one day, a curious smile spreading across her face. "You're handling things with such calm. What's your secret?" I laughed, feeling a sense of gratitude wash over me. "It's all about seeing challenges as growth opportunities," I replied, feeling earnest. "It's about believing in ourselves and taking small steps. I think we all have that strength inside, sometimes we just need to really tap into it." I began coaching others, sharing what I had learned about focus, resilience, and connection. I witnessed their struggles ebb away, just as mine had. Their excitement became a part of my own journey, a reinforcing cycle of support that flourished in my shop. Stronger and more connected than ever, I embraced the lessons deep within me, knowing they would continue to forge a path toward growth. My story was not just mine but part of something larger, a vibrant community navigating the art of resilience together. Sitting behind the counter of my shop, I couldn't help but smile as I surveyed the lively atmosphere around me. My heart felt lighter, knowing I had changed in ways I couldn't have imagined just a few months ago. The vibrant colors of the crafts decorated the walls, and the buzzing laughter of my customers filled the air. I watched as people connected, shared ideas, and created together, just as I had hoped. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that I had transformed from a person crippled by self-doubt to someone who now embraced challenges with confidence. Each experience, whether positive or negative, had become an opportunity to learn and grow. That moment during the interview was not just a reflection of pressure, it had been a turning point, pushing me to recognize my ability to cope, adapt, and thrive. I couldn't forget the feeling of standing in front of that journalist, wrestling with my fears. Now, those insecurities seemed small and distant. I had learned to turn them inside out, using each one to build courage instead of letting them weigh me down. Mental resilience wasn't just a concept, it was a way of life that transformed my everyday routine into something meaningful. In those quiet moments at the counter, I thought about future challenges I would face. Life was unpredictable, constantly throwing obstacles in our path. But now, those uncertainties felt invigorating. I was ready to welcome whatever lay ahead. Perhaps there would be tough days, perhaps there would be missteps. But I knew I was not alone in my journey, and I had developed the tools to navigate the storm. Each morning, I reminded myself of the lessons I had learned. Mental strength guided my decisions, and focus anchored my actions. I developed daily habits of gratitude and reflection, which allowed me to celebrate both my small victories and the struggles that paved my path. Achieving growth meant embracing imperfections while appreciating progress. One evening, as the sun set behind the Seattle skyline, casting warm hues through my shop window, I curated special crafting workshops that emphasized making connections and encouraging creativity. I invited poets, painters, and storytellers to share their crafts, blending art genres and healing hearts. It reminded me that we all have stories to tell, moments to share, and dreams to pursue. As I looked forward, I knew my journey was only just beginning. I envisioned expanding my shop, building a community hub for creativity and collaboration. Each step forward might challenge me, but I understood that I was equipped with resilience and newfound focus. I faced my personal growth with open arms, ready to brave new storms. "Hey, Alex." One of my friends called, interrupting my thoughts. "We're crafting together this weekend, right?" "Absolutely." I replied with a grin, comforted by the friendships I'd nurtured along the way. In that moment, my heart swelled with hope. I remembered the struggle and doubt but also embraced the progress and triumph. Life would always bring its challenges, but I felt stronger, ready to tackle them head-on. Through my experiences, I learned that growth is more fulfilling when shared. Whatever hurdles awaited me, I was ready. I understood that my story was a tapestry woven from resilience, courage, and connection, and together we would thrive. Looking towards the future, a comforting warmth enveloped me, believing that I could face anything that life would throw my way. Hope shone brightly,